Russell, so last week was that waste of space, not much Cop29, where no world leaders of any significance went at all, apart from two-tier Keir and crazy Ed Miliband, the net zero nutter. And by the way, since coming into power, as it were, Ed Miliband, who so wants to save the planet, has flown 23,000 planet-destroying miles. So he doesn't really care personally if he wants you to save the planet. He's not going to bother himself. He's going to climb on every jet he can. Anyway, last week, Ed and Keir headed off to Baku in Azerbaijan and took with them a grotesque 470 British delegates. That is a grotesque number. First of all, how does that save the planet? And secondly, you're talking about their air flights. By the way, Keir Starmer's personal filmmaker was among the delegates. Their air flights, their hotels, their eating costs, their expenses. I think you've done a few sums, haven't you, Russell?
Should we hazard a calculated, educated guess on what that might have cost? So 470, I mean, I would argue all 470 of those people are completely unnecessary. You know, forget the climate argument, whether you think it's real or not, man-made or not. It's a complete waste of time, given that our contribution is 1% of carbon.
Doesn't matter anyway. The whole event doesn't work.
But bearing in mind also, the Russians didn't go. Chinese didn't go. The Indians didn't go. The US didn't go. The Germans didn't go. The French,
Macron
the Canadians
didn't go. Even Ursula von der Leyen from the EU didn't go. No one went except these, you know, Tweedledee and Tweedledum from Britain.
And these people have clearly never heard of Teams or Zoom. But anyway, so what do we reckon? 470 people. Yeah. It's a long way. It's a 7 or 8 hour flight. So I reckon if you add flights, hotel, sustenance and so on, that's got to be $5 grand each. At 470 people, at the taxpayers' cost,
a couple of million,
2.3 million.
2 million,
pounds.
2.3 million pounds. I would agree with that. That will be about it. Even if you cut it back, it is even if, you know, they only ate sandwiches and stayed in tents, you're still talking about more than 1.5 million, probably 2 million. But I think Russell's sums are probably on the money. £2.5 million.
Yep, totally unnecessary. And not only is it an outrageous waste of taxpayer costs, but if you look hard enough on Twitter, you'll still, or X, whatever you want to call it these days, you'll still find Angela Rayner's speech about how outrageous it was back in 2000 and whenever it was, 23, that Rishi Sunak and his cabinet were spending so much money on private jets. Now, I suspect, roll forward 2 or 3 years, the amount of money that this government, this front bench, and particularly Keir Starmer, who's of course now off to Brazil, you saw the photos no doubt over the weekend, him in his private jet with his number 10 mug, and I do say mug, you know, looking very, very kind of statesmanlike and important. The money that these people are spending at our expense on effectively luxury and unnecessary air travel is abhorrent.
Absolutely, couldn't agree with you more. Even the climate loonies at the BBC, and they're obsessed with the quotes climate change emergency. Even they only sent 28 staff to Azerbaijan. So 28 from the BBC, 470 from this gormless government.
But what do they do? I mean,
I'll tell you what they do. They have the time of their life. They all went for slap-up meals, beers, God
Can I just say, I can't take the credit for this, but, you know, obviously we've got loads and loads of nicknames and pseudonyms for Keir Starmer now, you know, the whole two-tier Keir. Yeah. I heard a brilliant one on Twitter, which I can't take the credit for. Never hear Keir.
Never hear Keir. I mean, I did this story about a month ago, that there were fears that he was spending too much time out of the country. Now it's
20 trips.
It's now 20 trips. Yeah. He's always out of the country, and I'll tell you why. They all do this. They get voted in, and everybody loves them for about a day. They go, oh, you know, people love me. They just voted me. I'm the Prime Minister. Oh, look. Then everybody, in his particular case, very quickly hated him. And what they do then, the leaders of countries, they then start going on lots and lots of foreign trips, because when he goes to France or Baku or Brazil, where he is at the moment, people take him seriously. We're not even taking this guy seriously anymore back here. He's a national joke.
Well, I think also, apart from him wanting to flee the country because he's the least popular Prime Minister ever already, only 4 months in, I think he likes the whole mingling with other statespeople thing a little bit too much.
Because because it's an escape from the hatred and the ridicule that he suffers here. They all do it. They all do it. I mean, the most egregious example of his jet setting was outrageously, in my view, armistice at the moment on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. Shouldn't a Prime Minister be with his people in his own country? Instead, he's standing ludicrously in the back of that jet, in the back of that Jeep, rather, you know, with Macron, looking like some kind of weirdo. You know, so he's always abroad. But anyway, he's seeing Xi Jinping, the Chinese leader at the G20 summit right now. It says we need a more practical and reasonable relationship with China. Well, yeah, OK, but Xi Jinping will take about as much notice of Keir Starmer as he does of Britain's initiative to be a world leader in green energy. You know, we produce so little pollution, so little carbon emissions, less than 1% of the world, that Starmer and Miliband and too many idiot British politicians think that somehow or other their halo polishing virtue signalling will inspire Xi Jinping or Vladimir Putin or the leader of Brazil or Modi in India to do the same. What a load of claptrap.
But can I just add, Kev, some of us, this channel particularly, did warn the electorate what was going to happen. I don't just mean, you know, the pensioners and the tax rises and so on. Keir Starmer, not that long ago, was asked by a journalist in the run-up to the election what he favoured the most, Parliament in Westminster or global Davos and so on. And he unbelievably out loud said Davos. Well, that's now coming true. It's pretty obvious that he has little respect for us and our systems and institutions. He wants to be seen on the world stage.
By the way, we're not really going to cover it in detail, but obviously we stand four square with the farmers who are about to stage an angry protest about Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor of Doom's really cruel and punishing inheritance tax, which will ruin family farming, and they're up in arms, and they are threatening a very, very significant protest. But I'm not sure it's quite as significant as Sky News declared. So have a look at what Sky News... Look at this protest that the farmers are planning.
You're watching Sky News Today. Still to come, farmers preparing to protest in Westminster as inheritance tax anger grows. We'll be speaking to cereal farmer Ollie Harrison.
Those farmers mean business, right?
Well, hopefully
that's a protest.
Hopefully it's not quite going to come to that. I will be there tomorrow, by the way, so anybody that's coming along to support farmers and, you know, food in general and farmers not being taxed out of existence, I'll see you there.
Good for you, Russell. Any of you want to talk about the plight of the farmers, by all means give me a ring.